Have you ever wondered, is there really a place in the world where everything, from a handwritten letter to an old notebook, is classified as a state secret? Where the highest power doesn't belong to a president nor to an emperor, but to someone known only as the Holy Father, and where, deep beneath the surface, 25 meters underground, lies a vault that holds the letters of Napoleon, medieval witch trial documents, and secrets no one dares to name? Sounds like legend? It's not. It's the Vatican. And if you still think the Vatican is just a big church in the middle of Rome, you're about to see it in a whole new light. Vatican, power, secrets, and the stains of history. They say it's the smallest country in the world, but its influence casts a shadow across centuries and souls. Behind the stained glass and sacred hymns lies something far more complicated than holiness. The Vatican is not just a city of saints, it's an absolute monarchy, where the Pope is not just a shepherd of souls, but a sovereign ruler, lawmaker, judge, and king cloaked in white. Each time a pontiff dies, the ritual begins. The ring of the fisherman is destroyed. 3 coffins seal his body, wood, lead, and wood again. Coins are placed beneath his feet, one for every year he reigned. A scroll of his final blessing is slipped inside. But not even death can always silence the throne. In the 9th century, something unthinkable happened. Pope Formosus, dead for months, was exhumed. They dressed his decaying corpse in papal robes, propped him on a throne, and held a trial, the Cadaver Synod. A council of bishops watched as Pope Stephen VI accused the corpse of perjury. They cut off his fingers, they tore off his vestments, they dumped his body in the Tiber. Justice, madness, or the terrifying reach of power disguised as piety. And yet, what the world sees is only the surface. 25 meters below the ground, deeper than most tombs, lies the Vatican Apostolic Archive. 50 miles of shelves, letters from emperors, the excommunication of Martin Luther, the trial of Galileo, the sealed documents of the Inquisition. And then came 2012, VATICAN'S. The Pope's own butler leaked classified documents revealing financial misconduct, internal betrayal, and political games inside the walls of the Holy See. The shock wasn't that sin existed. The shock was how well it had been hidden. This was not just a church. This was a global moral compass, and suddenly its needle spun wild. But wait, before the easy outrage, consider this. The church has always been both divine and human. Built by fishermen and sinners, guided by spirit, but held in human hands. The scandal is not that darkness is here. The miracle is that, somehow, light still flickers through the cracks. The Vatican may be veiled in gold, but its story is inked in blood, silence, power, and grace. Inside the Vatican, secrets, science, and a crisis of truth. In an age where satellites scan continents and AI rewrites poetry, one place remains stubbornly silent, sacred, shrouded, and fiercely guarded. The Vatican, the smallest country in the world, yet perhaps the most impenetrable. But behind its marble halls and centuries-old rituals, something unexpected has happened. The Vatican didn't get left behind. It upgraded. They no longer guard only bones and scrolls. They now guard data. In recent years, cyber attacks linked to major global powers, China, the US, Russia, weren't aimed at banks or missiles, but at Vatican servers. Why? Because somewhere beneath the Sistine Chapel lies digital silence, encrypted files, letters sealed for generations, and archives that could rewrite history. Rumors speak of political secrets, prophetic visions, and ancient relics still unacknowledged. In a world obsessed with openness, the Vatican's secrecy is magnetic and deeply suspicious. But not all darkness comes from algorithms. Some cries echo from broken lives. For the past 2 decades, the Catholic Church has faced one of its gravest reckonings, the systemic abuse of children by clergy, hidden for decades behind holy walls. From Ireland to Chile, the testimonies have surfaced, honest, shattering, unforgettable. And while Rome has responded, creating tribunals, task forces, and public apologies, many still ask, can a church judge itself and still call it justice? The world demands transparency. Survivors demand dignity. But the Vatican was built for eternity, not urgency. And in that, we find the crisis. Because this is no ordinary institution. It claims divine origin, eternal truth. So when it fails to confront sin, its fall feels apocalyptic. But maybe that's where grace begins. Maybe the miracle isn't that the Vatican hides no sins, but that it still holds the power to confess them. The real question is not, what is the Vatican hiding? But rather, can it still lead in a world that no longer waits? Because a church that dares to look at its wounds is not losing holiness, it is rediscovering it. The church that bleeds and still believes. After everything you've heard, the scandals, the secrets, the centuries of silence and glory, you might be left asking, how can I still believe? The answer is both painfully simple and eternally deep. You still can, because there's a difference between the church made by men and the church built by God. The church has scars. It always has. From Peter, the stubborn, terrified fisherman who denied his master 3 times, to Francis, the elderly priest who wept in silence after being chosen to shepherd 1.3 billion souls. The church has never been a museum for saints. It is a battlefield hospital. It's where broken souls limp in, and grace still manages to walk out with them. It's a paradox, a divine mystery carried in trembling hands, a sacred flame burning in vessels of clay. God never needed perfect instruments. He needed willing ones. He used cowardly Peter. He used corrupt popes who learned to kneel. He uses missionaries in jungles, mothers in silent kitchens, priests in crumbling villages. Still baptizing, still breaking bread, still whispering, "This is my body, given up for you." And that's the miracle, that even in an age of doubt, even through scandal, failure, betrayal, He hasn't left us. The church bleeds, but it still believes. If you came searching for clean lines, stainless saints, perfect doctrine delivered in golden envelopes, you came to the wrong place. But if you came looking for truth that costs something, truth that suffers, weeps, breaks, and rises again, then welcome. You've just stepped into the right mystery. So don't run, don't turn away. Wrestle with it, question it, weep if you must. But stay, because the failures of men are real, but they are not the faithfulness of God. And while the church is built by sinners, it stands on the rock, and not even the gates of hell will prevail. If this truth stirred something in you, don't ignore it. Let it awaken you. Let it send you back, not to comfort, but to courage. Because the church may bleed, but her blood is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of redemption. Now the question is no longer mine, it's yours. What did this awaken in you? Were you surprised, disturbed, or did something sacred stir in the silence between words? If it shook you, even just a little, then don't keep it buried. This isn't a story to scroll past, it's one to wrestle with. Share this with someone you trust, not to spark outrage, but to ignite a deeper kind of courage. Because truth was never meant to be hidden, and light, it was never afraid of shadows. If your faith has ever wavered, if the sins of men ever made you question the holiness of God, then remember this: your faith was never built on men who don't fail. It was built on a God who never does, a God who weeps with the wounded, walks with the doubting, and still chooses to work through a church made of dust. This is not a call to comfort. It's a call to the brave, to those willing to look at the cracks and still believe the light can shine through. So don't just don't just watch. Let this truth live in you. Let it grow. And when you're ready, tell the world, grace is still real and the story isn't over.